Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. I'm going to title this segment where I'm just going to speak to you light and treacherous persons, common sense, regular English. Once again, light and treacherous persons, common sense, regular English. You see, there are times when a man may look at a thing, he sees it, but he doesn't know what it is. As we deal with the light and treacherous persons throughout the nations, the children of Israel are now rising up against unrighteousness. We're seeing this in Niger, in Mali, Burkina Faso, and some of these other places where these French individuals rule. We know clearly that the people that have ruled over us are unrighteous in all of their ways. Period. When one of them goes to war, all of them goes to war because there are of Psalms 83. They've all conspired against the hidden ones of the Most High. They're all in cahoots. They're all confederate against the children of Israel. These are all of your enemies. There's a reason why we were told specifically not to enter any covenants with them. You cannot enter into a covenant with a man that's not a covenant keeper. You understand? You cannot expect righteousness out of a man that has no righteousness in him. You can't expect justice out of a man or a people that don't know what justice is. This is the era of the children of Israel. As it pertains to Niger, Mali, and all of these other nations where France are literally robbing, stealing, abusing, and killing these people. We have to ask ourselves in diaspora, how long, and every man of Israel is asking, how long will these unrighteous individuals be allowed to rule over us? How long will the earth continue to mourn as we see unrighteousness in all of its forms be presented to the people of the earth and be elevated within the earth to where when the righteous man speaks out, all the unrighteous is looking at him as if what he is saying is somehow bizarre and strange. Unrighteousness is now the thing of the day, and the righteous must stand up in the gap and point it out, and when possible, and it should always be possible, to punish it. The French have been doing this for quite some time. It's not new, but they're in cahoots with all the other European nations. And since the other European nations are unrighteous as well, they allow what France has done to go unpunished in Africa. What took place in South Africa, what took place in Zimbabwe and other places in Africa would not have been possible if the European powers did not okay it. The African nations are the most sanctioned nations in the earth. Why? Because all the European nations are against the African nations or anyone that looks like me and looks like you in many cases. These are the Christian nations. These are the people that have murdered, slaughtered, enslaved us all over the earth, and stolen our substance. That's who have done it. We're going to make this plain. The wicked, the unrighteous, no shame. The French has no shame. The British has no shame. The Italians have no shame. The Germans and Netherlands have no shame. Portugal has no shame. All of these nations have murdered and slaughtered black people throughout the earth. The apologies that they may give us is half-hearted and light. It means nothing. It's unimportant. They are unwilling to pay for what they have done to our people, but they will be made to pay. The Most High made it plain that every man's way, be it righteous or unrighteous, will be returned upon his own head. The French got it coming. The British got it coming. The Germans got it coming. The Italians got it coming. Portugal got it coming. Spain got it coming, and all Canada got it coming. Those Europeans from Australia got it coming. They all got it coming. That's why we have to consider our ways and our doings and make it good. And how foolish can a man of Israel be? How foolish can any black person be when you look at these people called Christians that have murdered and slaughtered us all over the earth, and you be stupid enough to call yourself a Christian and stand up in front of some white person calling him God? This is the stupidity of our people. Irregardless of whether it be a man of Israel or a man of the other nations that is of hue. So now we're beginning to rise up against these nations, and this is going to be everywhere. What we're saying is the uprising of the righteous against the unrighteous. And so now we have to ask ourselves, should war break out in those African nations that are rising up against this corrupt and unrighteous European powers? We're going to deal with France right now. They're all corrupt and they're all unrighteous, and none of them knows the way of Yah. Absolutely none of them. As this happens, how many men, African men, black men, let's use that. You know exactly what I mean. How many black men in the French army is willing to go to Africa and kill other black men on the behalf of some unrighteous Europeans who are doing black people wrong in Africa and have done it for centuries and doing black people wrong all over the earth? How many black men in the French army are willing to pick up their weapon and aim it at another black person and kill him on the behalf of an unrighteous man? That's the question. Now, we have to understand clearly when one of these individuals, one of these Psalms 83 nations, when one of them goes to war, they all go to war, regardless of whether it's a good cause or none of their causes a righteous cause. At no time. This man is nothing. That's why, keep in mind, the Most High's law grants peace. None of these European nations have ever been at peace. They're always in a state of war because they have never known the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, nor have they ever walked in it. The wicked man, the unrighteous man, makes mischief in his bed. What does that mean? Can you imagine just sitting up at night, sitting in your bed thinking how to do the math to calculate how to kill 6 million people? What's the calculation of the poison I need to put in this water to kill 3 million people? When I mix this mustard gas, what what percentage of XYZ and XYZ do I need in order for it to be potent to kill 6 million people? What do I need to do harm to these black people in this place and that place? You see, his thoughts upon his bed is mischief, it's war, it's unrighteous. Our people simply don't think that way. We're not making the mustard gas. We're not trying to make a bomb to kill 50,000 people or 100 million people. This is not our thought process. We are entirely different people. We have to understand that. That way, when these light and treacherous people come before us talking about we're all the same, we're all one, we're all God's people, and all this other nonsense, that this is not true. None of this is true. These individuals, as a collective, are entirely different than our people. Period. So, if France were to invade Niger or any one of these African nations, ECOWAS, these collaboration of West African nations, are these quote unquote black people, these black nations, stupid enough to pick up guns and go kill other black people on the behalf of some Europeans that have murdered, slaughtered, and cheated them and continue to do it? Are the nations or the ECOWAS nations, are they that stupid? If France go, America probably going to go. How many black men in the U.S. military are willing to pick up guns and shoot Africans for an unjust and an unrighteous cause, how unconscious are we if we are to go fight a war for an unrighteous man? How many of us are willing to do that? And here's the answer: all of us are willing to do that. That's the spirit of blindness that's been put upon the house of Israel. Now, what we're going to see is whether that blindness is removed or being removed. This is the test, because what we're seeing now, a brother told me at work, he said, man, they're trying to get those African nations to go to war. I said, they're not trying to. They have already had for many years the African nations at war. I said, they have us at war here with each other. So this is just what you're seeing now. You're beginning to understand and see, as we have read earlier, discovering the foundations thereof, the foundation of that wall, untempered mortar, the lies. We're now beginning to clearly see what we're looking at, understand what we're looking at when dealing with these unrighteous individuals. We can now put it together when in times past we'll just pick up the guns and go kill our fellow brother, not understanding the dynamics and the foundation of these lies and understanding exactly what their motives were. So, as all of this begins to take place, we're seeing the uprising against these light and treacherous traitors that call themselves presidents and dictators in these nations. The people start to rise up in righteousness, turn against them. They have been doing this for years in Africa. But not only that, as our people rise up against those who do not serve their purpose, these wicked and corrupt leaders, we're seeing a rising up in America as well, to where we are rising up against the politicians that look like us, that work on the behest or at the behest of our enemies. And you're seeing our people stand up against them. So what's happening is the children of Israel, and if you look at those 14 nations by which in Africa, by which the French continue to rule over and rob and steal and kill, those 14 nations are right in the area of what on the map was known as Negro land. Whole lot of Israelites done passed through there. And there's a whole lot of Israelites that are still there. Many of our people are in those areas. So could this be the hissing where the Most High is calling for his people, to where we start rising up in righteousness in the midst of these many nations, where we start pointing out the unrighteous individuals in the midst of us. And as we weed out and clear out the wickedness and the unrighteousness in the midst of us, now the Most High continues to strengthen us even more. Now he can come in the midst of us and strengthen us now that we've gotten rid of the enemies within and we're walking in righteousness. Now we can go and combat the enemies without, these other nations that's been murdering and slaughtering our sons in the street. And we weren't strengthened by which we could do anything. Now we start doing something about that, and the Most High is against us. Now, it thought to the man of Israel and to the woman of Israel, the common sense thought would be that, well, we're outnumbered and we're outgunned. This is true. They have all the weapons of war. They make them all. We don't make the guns. We don't make the mustard gas. We don't make the atomic bombs or any of these things. The gas masks, the grenades. There is no brother, no place that own a tank factory. We don't own that. Most High won't allow us to own that. We don't own the weapons factory. We don't own that. And we have no desire to. Moreover, we don't need it. Think of the 300 with Gideon. You see, when we go up against our enemies, if we have the same number as them or we outnumber them, it's it's plausible, it's easy to consider when we win. If we win and our numbers are the same as theirs, or we outnumber them, then that's a plausible thing. Yeah, you're supposed to win. You were equal pretty much. The amazing thing about when we go up against our enemies, that's why Gideon was allowed to take but 300, Because when you go with this 300 against that big vast number they've got, you're going to know that the Most High was in the midst of you for the 300 of you to take down all these people. So what's going to be interesting is that, yeah, how do these people get this great victory and they didn't have all the fighter jets and the tanks and the mustard gas and everything else? How did they do that? The only way that was possible, the Most High was with them. And so this is what we're going to see is a strengthening of our spirits against our enemies. This is going to be done by the Most High. But as he strengthens us, he's going to weaken them. So let's see what transpires in Africa. I think you're going to see that same rising up of our people everywhere, everywhere. And as we rise up, they're going to come against us. The more they come against us, the more we galvanize against each other or with each other. And then we're going to see that pastor going to try to come tell us how we ought to make peace with them. Can't make peace with a man that's not peaceable. Can't do it. Cannot do it. And so, therefore, anyone that sides with our enemies, when we begin to come out of this dust, we come into this great awakening. Ezekiel chapter 37. As we wake up and start turning to righteousness, we become strengthened, we become emboldened, we become empowered. In times past, we will let a light and treacherous person, i.e., a traitor, he could do a treasonous act. And then when it's found out, that joker is just allowed to walk around free. He can come back in the midst of us. Ain't nobody saying nothing. They're going to whisper behind his back here and there, but we're not going to stick it to him. The days are coming when you do or say anything that's detrimental to our people, and you are one of us, and you have sided with our enemies to cause us harm, you're not going to get away with that scot free. There are being men raised up whose spirit will not go for it. The spirit of the Most High will be upon them. And if you're going to do anything to cause God's people to be harmed, you're not going to just get away with that with some words. So all of our men who are actually siding up with our enemies, laying down with our enemies, and getting on their knees praying to their enemies, you need to be put on notice that a lot of what you're doing is unrighteous, it's wicked, it's sinful, it ought not to be done. And you've been getting away with this thing without punishment. And those days are gone. You're going to be punished for these things. You will see it. So let our men not rise up against each other and kill on the behalf of an unrighteous man. So I would hope that all those ECOWAS nations would be like, no, in fact, this is what we're going to do. We're going to arm up and make sure that none of you Europeans come in here. First of all, get all your naval bases out of here. Get all your soldiers off our land. The money you say we owe, the stuff that's on our feet, the minerals, the gold, the bauxite, whatever's down there, it's no longer yours. We're not putting our money in your banks. I've said it in times past. Any Israelite or any quote unquote black man that thinks he has some money and his money is sitting in his enemy's banks, he doesn't have any money. And just so you understand that. So Africans got to have their own banks, have to take all these military bases from these many different nations and kick them out, get them off your land. Now, these nations have their militaries. The Trojan horse. There's a lesson entitled Trojan Horse on this channel. Has a picture of a church. This man has two armies. He has an active army that wears camouflage, that has guns, bullets, rifles, rockets, planes, jets, etc. That's one part of his army. The other part of his army is the church. They serve the same purpose. One is to kill you with bullets. The other one is to kill your spirit, kill your mindset, make you docile to where you won't be a combatant against them or against the state. And so, if Niger and these other African nations are to root up these unrighteous Europeans, get all your bases out of here, get all your people out of here, and get your churches out of here. And any African that's in Africa trying to teach Africans that some white man died for them and is going to bring any of that Roman Catholic Christian doctrine, he's to be dealt with too. When we do that, then we're going to start seeing a big shift in the earth. It's already taking place. This word is reaching Africa. This word is reaching the Caribbean. It's reaching South America. It's reaching Central, South, and Latin America. People are hearing this word and it is changing them. It is causing them to go into this book. It's causing them to change the way they eat, the way they think, the way they dress, and most importantly, the way they act. It's causing them to turn to righteousness. It's turning the light on by which they can see. They were once in darkness. Now they're seeing that great light. They're turning to that law. And they're going to side with righteousness over siding with wickedness. And so, therefore, as we turn towards the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, first order of business, you got to let this idol house church go. You got to let this Roman idol called JC, you got to let that go. Now, once you do that, they have no idea of how to deal with you. Matter of fact, they can't. They'll be fearful of you because you're walking with the Most High. They're afraid of you. And in fact, they're unable to do anything to you. But provided you're taking a hold of these idols, and you got Africans out here, these African leaders, get back to them for a second, they have been corrupt and have done their people harm for so long. And now the people are beginning to root them out and punish them for their unrighteous and treasonous acts. These ECOWAS nations dealing with Nigeria, do you believe that in this day and age that there's black men in Africa sitting on a sitting on a bench as a judge wearing a blonde European white man wig? They are that stupid in 2023. And Nigeria is probably not the only one that's doing it. They're that dumb. So, and when I say dumb, I'm speaking to and blind, deaf and blind, unaware of what's happening and what's going on around them. And so, therefore, if you want to free yourself, you're going to have to do some fighting. You're going to have to do some changing. You can't go talking about, oh, the European is doing this, doing that, and he's unrighteous in his ways and all of that. And then you sit up on your bench and your judges are wearing a white man's wig, looking like a bunch of idiots. This is me talking to you real talk. This is what we've got going on with our people. Blatant stupidity. Blatant. These quote unquote missionaries that's going to Africa. You see, if you're working with a gun unit, i.e., an artillery unit or a mortar, these are bombs that you lob over great distances. But you just can't take these guns and just shoot at anything. There needs to be someone called a forward observer. What he is, he's that man out there in the midst of your people, writing down the coordinates of what's important. He's a spy pretty much. He's out there surveying the land for what's important, what targets to hit, etc., etc. And he's getting the coordinates of those different landmarks. And then once he gets that, he calls those coordinates into the gunning unit that's, 3 clicks away, 2 clicks away, kilometers, where they can't be seen. And all of a sudden, the people start getting bombed on. Well, where are these bombs coming from? And how do they know what targets to hit? Well, there's a man in the midst of you that's giving the coordinates to that bombing, to the gun unit that you can't see. And so they're able to bomb your position. And you're wondering, how do they know that? Well, there's a man in the midst of you that's taking all these coordinates and gave it to that gun unit to know exactly where to put those bombs. So these quote unquote missionaries that's taken this Christianity, this Roman Catholicism, and spread it all through the earth, they're kind of like a forward observer. They serve the same purpose. They survey the land. They know how to subdue the people. They know how to pacify the people with this Christianity. And after the missionaries come, then the other army comes, the one with the guns. But we're going to soften you first with this psychological warfare, this Christianity. I kick you in the face, you turn the other cheek. I kill your son, you turn the other cheek. When this army come and kick your doors in and shoot you in the face, don't do anything. Don't fight them. Don't pick up arms against them because hey, these are God's people coming in here killing you. That's the kind of mindset that they want to give to our people. Uh, don't fight now. Don't do anything because your greater reward is in heaven after you die. Or better said would be when they come to kill you, let them kill you because you've got a greater reward in heaven. And our people actually fall for this garbage. And anyone that looks like us that brings this doctrine of foolishness, this doctrine of cowardice, should be checked. In fact, they are being checked, and it's going to get worse. These pastors, these people are going to do something to you. It's coming as our people rise up. So watch these treacherous light and treacherous jokers in Africa. In South Africa, when they were given an opportunity to punish these Europeans that had murdered, slaughtered, and stolen, they decided to settle for some truth and reconciliation garbage and wonder why the South Africans still own everything and got everything because you turned a blind eye to justice, South Africa. When it was your time to punish wrongdoers, you turned a blind eye to that. And the Most High say, once you do that, I'm going to punish that man. I'm going to punish him and his house. So when you're given an opportunity to administer righteous judgment and punish the evildoer, and you don't do it, then them punishments coming to you. And I don't think the African understood that. I don't think the South Africans understood that. And that's why now they still don't own nothing. And they're still fighting for all these same things that there were pre this daggone silliness that they came up with. Truth and reconciliation. Well, no, you killed my son, I need your son dead. You stole my gold, I need that back. You own my land, you got to get off. It's really that simple. But they didn't want to do all of that. Compromise leaders, light and treacherous persons. Go to Kenya, Kenyatta, the one that was responsible for their independence. He up in England laying up with all the European women having babies and whatever else. When he come back to Kenya, you can't go hard on the European. Heck, you compromise. You laying down with them. So you're gonna have to go easy on him and go easy on him. On them, he did. So all the Europeans praise him for him not doing anything to them, pretty much. And so this is what you got. So as soon as we decide to raise up, you always got one coward or two, usually coming out of the church, that's going to tell us, no, stand down. All of these men are not willing to fight. And come time to fight, there are those that's been placed in the midst of us that will say things and do things that will cause the men's heart to faint. And these are the things that we have to look for. We have to look for the men in the midst of us that are cowards that's going to do things to weaken the strength in the hearts and minds of our people who are going to stand in righteousness. And these are usually going to come from your clergy. We know clearly the political environment in America is getting ready to pick up steam. As we're looking at this, the President Donald Trump has had some charges brought up against him. Some of them may be trumped up charges, pardon the pun, but many of our people have been faced with charges that weren't right and still did time. Some of our people are stating that he's one of us. There's no way he's one of us. He don't even look like you. You stupid to even say that. And many of us are saying this stupidity. He ain't one of us. He's got more money than you've got more access than you've got, and care nothing about you. How is he one of us? This is the kind of things that our people don't think about when they start speaking. And now we have one that was Brother Cornel West, academic, he was trying to run. You've got to watch these academics. These academics have their degrees accredited, tenure by schools that are run by Europeans. You're a product of the European establishment. Period. You're not going to be granted access to money, influence, etc., and then turn around and speak against the very establishment that gave it to you. And as bright as he is, I don't think he understands that, or as bright as he's supposed to be. And so now he has lost tenure at one of the universities, and now he had to go do what most of our men are relegated to do: go teach in a seminary school. That way you may be a voice in the midst of the enemy. Our enemies will send a man teaching in a seminary school, and he's going to push propaganda. Don't fight them, turn the other cheek, your greater reward is in heaven, and all the other Roman doctrines that we have been given in all of these lands. And the Most High has said clearly, it's all for naught. We will turn to that idol, and that idol is profitable for nothing. When in your time of trouble, call on that idol and see if he will deliver you. And we've been doing that, and it has failed, and it will continue to fail. But if our men are doing their bidding, and I've said the church is nothing but a Trojan horse in the midst of our people. That's why you have so many of them. It's where our enemies know. I know exactly where they're at. I've got spies in the midst of this hub that's going to tell me exactly who's doing what, saying what, how much money you make, where you live, what you drive. And if any of you in this church community decide to have any sentiment of dissent and trying to rise up, that pastor's going to go back and tell them people. They're the one that's empowered him and put him in that position. It's a light and treacherous person. The man's a traitor. Got you serving a God that's not your God. Got you walking in ways that's not your ways. And he's getting all the money in the process. So, once again, we're to watch these light and treacherous persons that's doing the things that they're doing. These churches, these men are light and treacherous. The man that's being elevated in the midst of our society, they're either a politician, and once again, addressing this politician, the house of Israel we were clearly told that we were not to put a man of another nation ahead of us, ever, ever. And if we put a man ahead of us that does not walk in the law, statute, judgments, and precepts, that's even worse. So we're never ever to go vote and put a European to run to lead us. If that man is not of our brethren, he is not supposed to be ahead of us. He's not supposed to lead us anywhere. How many Israelites know that? When you go vote for Donald Trump, when you go vote for Joe Biden, that's why none of these politicians have ever done you any good, ever. You can vote from now till the cows come home. You put a man that's not of your people, that's not of your brethren, ahead of you, it will never work. That's the Most High speaking. So when you try to put these Europeans ahead of you, it ain't gonna work for you. And if you vote a man that is of your brethren and you put him in charge of you, and he does not walk in the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, he will fail you all the same. So these are things that we have to be mindful of when dealing with these politicians and dealing with these preachers. This church is a military hub. It's the fight, is the psychological fight. They have the psyops that's run by the church. Then they have the military that actually got the bullets. They go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. The first thing they're going to do when they conquer you is put a church in there. Because now I got to pacify you with words. I got to change your mindset to where you don't fight me. And what Christianity does, it makes it to where you don't fight them. But you get rid of that, and all of a sudden you got a spirit to fight them again. You get strengthened against them, and that's what they don't want. So as we step up in these many lands, and the Most High continue to raise up men of the house of Israel that will teach his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, you will see men that look like me, that look like us. Some of these men are of the house of Israel that will stand up and speak counter or contrary towards the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts in order to keep the children of Israel astray, walking after this Christian idol. So there's going to be a counter effect to what we're doing. At least they will make an attempt to do so. So we're to watch clearly for this. These light and treacherous persons, they're everywhere. Let's look and see exactly how this development takes place in Africa. Let's see what these ECOWAS nations do. Do they take their weapons and aim it against their brother and kill him? Do men, black men from the French army, do you go to Africa and kill black people on the behalf of France? Does the black American go into Niger and kill fellow black people on the behalf of NATO or whomever else? And the fact of the matter is, these men are going to do that unless the Most High Spirit come upon them. And so, therefore, we don't know what we're going to see over the next year. Brother Dave is thinking that something unprecedented is going to come, is going to happen in 2024. I don't know. But I certainly have got my eyes open, and what I'm seeing, I've never seen before. And I've not seen our people or black people. I'm going to use that term. And all black people are not of the house of Israel. If you're reading the book, you know this. But I'm seeing our people raising up, and that's going to have an effect everywhere, whether you're of the house of Israel or not, because we don't know who's who for the most part. Uh, but what we do know who has been oppressing us. That is very clear, and we're not to be confused about that, nor are we to pull any punches with it. We know who's doing this because who is doing it has been doing it, and we can trace it to right now. We don't have to go back 10,000 years, 500 years, 300 years. We know who's doing this. And the question is, how long will y'all? How long will these wicked individuals be allowed to rule over us, doing what they have done to us with absolutely no shame, no regard for your laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, no regard for our elderly, no regard for our children? How long will this be allowed to be done before you strike them down before our face and you strengthen us against them, that we will not at all endure the ways of the wicked? These politicians, Cornel West being one of them, teaching in a seminary school, he's an enemy unto himself and an enemy unto his own people. Unbeknownst to him, he think he's some kind of a pro-black person. You can't be pro-black and you're educated by your enemies. Your enemies didn't educate you that you can be a weapon against them. You can't be pro-black and you come before your people telling them some white man died for them. This is the craziness of these individuals. And now you're trying to run. You're supposed to be quote unquote in a seminary school, a man of God, whatever that means, coming from them, and you're going to go run to be the president. Well, any black person in America knows that all the laws that was made in America, this place was built on unrighteousness. And we know any house that's built on unrighteousness, that house is not going to be allowed to stand. Period. So why would a quote, if he's supposed to be righteous, we know he's not, because he does not serve Yah and he does not walk in the ways of the Most High. We know this. Why would any righteous man try to be a part of a government that is unrighteous? No righteous man will do that. He will withdraw his hands from it. So this is where these men exposes themselves. We know this system is corrupt. We know this system is wicked. We know this system is against the children of Israel from top to bottom. It has been set up that way. We see the inequity and the injustice against our people day in, day out, from our children to our elderly to our women. What Israelite is going to try to be a part of a system that he knows are anti-God's people and anti-God's law? The only person that's going to try to partner up with something like that is a wicked man. So be able to recognize these light and treacherous individuals when you see them, regardless of how many degrees they have and how nice a suit they wear. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Children of Israel continue to rise up against this madness, against this wickedness that we see in the earth. And those of you who are of the nations, who are Europeans, when I speak of the Europeans and their unrighteousness, I am not speaking in absolutes. I've got a handful of Europeans that I know quite well and that I care for. One of my brother-in-laws, one of them is an absolute white guy. Okay, he's a German, and so is my mother-in-law because my wife is mixed. So I have brother-in-laws. I have a brother-in-law that's a German guy, it's a white guy. He has shown me or done no harm towards me, and has been righteous in his dealings with me since he was a child. So, it's not in absolute, but I'm no fool. I understand clearly who has done this to us, and I want to see them pay. And any man that's walking in righteousness want to see the unrighteous pay. The European that walks in righteousness, that will take a hold of the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, that will acknowledge that your people have done the people of God wrong, that have done these African people as well, have done them an injustice. If you can see that and you can repent to that and you will not be a party to that, then you have nothing to worry about. But the unrighteous European and the unrighteous Israelite got a problem with everything that I have just stated. And the unrighteous man, I don't care what you think. Period. You're an enemy unto me, whether you look like me or not. The righteous man, I can sit down and break bread with him, irregardless of his nation. The unrighteous man, I'm at war with you. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Be mindful of these light and treacherous individuals that's being catapulted in these high places by our enemies. And one way for our enemies to infiltrate us is to send a man or a woman that look like us. They can't come in the midst of us because they already know we don't trust them. So their best bet is to find one of us that is compromised. And they will do this for bread. They will do this for money. So when you see the man stand before us telling us what we know to be lies, look behind him and see who's funding him. And that will make things clear to you and to us. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. And peace to the stranger that will take a hold of the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts and do them. Let's see how things transpire in Africa. I say take the French, the Dutch, and whoever else is sitting in Africa and run them up out of there. Get the militaries and get them all out. And get that church out of there too. And everyone that's in it, get rid of them. It's an eminent high place. First of all, God's house was built in Jerusalem. That's the only place it was, and that's the only place it will ever be. That way we can root out this idolatry and these idols from the midst of our nations, that the Most High may come in the midst of us. He may grant us peace and strengthen us against our enemies. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless.